And we are live. Welcome back to Aussies taking over the NBA. It is Sunday night, the weekend, a wet weekend here in Sydney. Pretty crazy storms going on.
Pretty miserable.
Yeah, all over Sydney. But we're here to do a San Antonio Spurs season review. The Spurs first time not making the playoffs. That was pretty crazy. A pretty crazy season.
It's kind of weird, the bubble off playoff / yeah. I don't know. I think they may have made it in a longer version of the season, but not quite getting there.
It was a struggle by the end of the regular season, then into the bubble. The bubble was definitely a struggle as well with all those other teams. But as always, you can like and subscribe now on Spotify. We are on iTunes, Podcast Addict, SoundCloud, YouTube. This is going out live on YouTube. We are on Twitter and Facebook too, so head over there and give us a like. We are doing some more content, so make sure you keep your eyes peeled. We did a reaction video on Josh Green, so make sure you go and check that out. If you're watching on YouTube, click that and watch that. Josh Green looks pretty good. He's going to be a good prospect. I think top 20-ish.
I think he's going to be a sneaky dark horse in it, that 19 or 20 mark. Although I would like the Jazz to draft him at 21.
Yeah, no, not the Jazz. Someone else, someone interesting, someone else. But yeah, as always, like, share, and subscribe. And yeah, we'll get into this Spurs season review. Spurs finishing, I think 9th, was it? I think I had it up here.
No, they would have finished 10th.
10th in the West. It was 11th in the West.
11th.
So well outside the top 8, the seeds. Around some kind of, knockout teams. Portland, Memphis were looking a lot better in the regular season, and then Phoenix probably were looking better, I think, than the Spurs in the regular season. But heading into that bubble, it was pretty disappointing to watch them. Like you saw that Memphis, the Portland, the Phoenix team, you could see that they were all at a different, like a better level than this Spurs team. More explosive. I wouldn't say Phoenix were, at a level that was above what the Spurs probably should be at. But at the same time, like, I feel like these younger teams have like more wild, they're more hungry, they're more out of control at the same time as being able to win games that way. Whereas the Spurs is kind of more of a, feet in the sand, rock steady type team. And by the end of this season, you could kind of tell the roster is still that rock steady, feet in the sand team, but it's missing a few pieces.
Well, there's just no generational talent there anymore. Like, they were the Tim Duncans, probably the best power forward to play the game, and then Kawhi Leonard, Manu Ginobili, Tony Parker. Like, they were a system team, but they had generational talent, and that's all gone. And I think that we saw the demise or the downslope of DeMar DeRozan and LaMarcus Aldridge, who really are kind of in the twilight of their career, I'd say. We were just discussing before the pod that, there's going to be some moves that Pop needs to make. Either he needs to, step out of the franchise and they need to really start afresh, or you've got to try and get something for these two guys that don't even get you to the playoffs anymore. You think that they would get you to the playoffs, but I don't think LaMarcus went to the bubble though. He didn't.
No, I don't think he did. But at the same time, before we get to those two, we'll talk about those two on the back end, talking about going forward for the Spurs. But their season, looking at their season, sorry, were you going to say something?
No.
Offensive rating 112.4, which was 9th, but the defensive rating was 113.5, which is 25th. That's very un-Spurs like to have a team that defensively poor. Kind of set the table for them not really making the playoffs. I think it was the year. Like, it wasn't like they didn't make the playoffs and it was a struggle, but I think this year really it kind of fell apart. Popovich obviously going through some pretty heavy stuff with his wife passing away at the end of last season. You know, I don't think he looks like a guy that let's get a rebuild going, Pop. You know, we've got another 6 years here to go. Like, let's do it. Like, I feel like he kind of coached this season in a, you know, I don't know what's going on here. You know, I've lost the spark type of way. Did it feel like that to you?
Yeah, it felt like again he was going for some interesting rookies, trying to bring some talent through that I don't think is necessarily there. Derek White, Bryn Forbes, these kind of guys that, you know, they're probably deep NBA rotational players instead of, you know, your standout stars. You know, they didn't shoot a lot of threes on the season. Patty Mills is getting old. Still a good player, but, you know, getting old and not, you know, hard to defend 6'8" point guards and 6'5" shooting guards when you're 6 foot.
Mm.
You know, LaMarcus Aldridge doesn't really want to play defense, never has. He's more of that kind of scoring power forward type. They really don't have a great center.
Yeah, apart from that, Jakob Poeltl. Jakob Poeltl's kind of in that, you know, Zizic, Zubac type tier, really, isn't he?
Yeah, just I think they missed Bertans. I mean, Bertans wasn't the greatest shot blocker, but man, he could shoot the 3 ball like no tomorrow.
He was their 1 3-point shooter, and Pop was like, out of here, see you later, we don't need you.
We don't shoot threes around here.
Yeah, even DeRozan stopped shooting threes. I guess one of the big things was DeJounte Murray. They signed him to that big deal, the big extension. I think it was a rookie extension. And it was kind of a big deal. I'm just going to double check on how much that was. I think it ended up being 140 maybe. No, my math is awful. What's going on? Why can't I see what it is? The total. So what's 14 mil by 15 mil by 16 mil by 17 mil? Far out. 70, 80?
It's not rookie max.
Oh, 4 years, 63. Sorry, yeah, it's
not rookie max.
And that was a big kind of investment in a guy who did he get injured this year? I think it was the start of the year he got injured, like right at the start, blew his knee out. That was a big loss for them. And even when he came back, or was it last year?
It was last year.
Yeah, it was last year. Even coming back, he kind of looked a bit.
Because when he played for America in the World Cup, I mean, I think Patty Mills was a better player, to be honest with you. He can shoot the 3 ball. He's not really a facilitator, and I think that's what they're missing, is that you have a lot of ISO scorers in DeRozan, Aldridge, White. You know, Patty's also kind of an ISO scorer, can create his own shot off the dribble, but there's no facilitators. Like, you know, you look at your Tony Parkers, which could, you know, dismantle a team with passing, and even Tim Duncan could, you know, throw the ball around and you know, play to other play strength. It just seems like to me that there's a couple of players that need to move on, and the DeRozan was just a grab for Leonard, really. It's just like, oh, we're going to get something.
Yeah, value kind of grab, yeah.
It's just kind of value grab. Aldridge is kind of like, we need someone who's that Timmy-style player, which he kind of is, but without the defense.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? Like, he's kind of like that Tim Duncan-style scorer, but really can't defend. And they've got to get some value out of these next couple of years. I mean, I really like Keldon Johnson as a prospect. I think he, in the bubble, really took a couple of teams to town. Shoot the mid-range well, quick, explosive. You know, Rudy Gay's a good vet, but probably, you know, they've got a couple of vet contracts that are a little bit probably overpriced. Patty's on another 10 next year, I think his final year. I think Gay's on another 12 next year, which is his final year. So there's a couple of veterans in there on some decent sized money without anyone really being on the max. And I think to get value, they've got to shop DeRozan.
They've got to get off. So Murray's earning 14 million, Patty's on 13.5 million, Rudy Gay is 14.5 million. So even if you look at, and LaMarcus 24, like those 4 guys is the highest paid guys. It's kind of a crop of, you know, second tier, maybe possibly even third tier, reaching to the second tier guys that aren't really earning the value of what a Spurs team and the Spurs kind of system is really going to get out that crew of players. Like if you look at LaMarcus Aldridge and even DeRozan, it's kind of like they don't fit what a Spurs system is. Like
No.
handling, coming out, handoffs, movement. Yeah, it's not looking too good over the next couple of years. They're really gonna have to make some serious moves, and I guess sorting out Pop would be one of the first steps. Does it feel like he's kind of fading into that your time has passed type realm?
Yeah, I think it's. I think you got to know when to quit, and he's probably got another year or two of coaching in them. But whether that's just making a few moves, setting it up for the next guy, or he's finding his you know student to take over the
Mm,
helm of the team. Um, you've probably got one more year of just okay, keep it is, see if we can draft well, see what happens with the team, more Spurs system until you go right. It's probably time to blow this thing up. Paddy's coming off contract, Gay's coming off contract. That's 25 mil.
mm,
What's 27 mil? Moving Aldridge for maybe some draft stock, some picks, picking up a decent center would be another a good initiative. I don't think they've really got a center on that team that's worth anything.
mm.
Um, and trying to get something for DeRozan really. I think you kind of get this team back to a young state. I mean, I don't think Pop's probably too old to start afresh, and therefore it's just kind of getting through the next seasons. They're in rebuilding mode, but not really rebuilding.
Yeah, if you look 2021, Patty Mills comes off, he's unrestricted, and then Derek White's restricted. They're probably going to re-sign Derek White, even though he kind of was a bit of a empty suit in
Mm.
that bubble. Struggled a little bit. He had a couple of great games in that series last year against. Was it against who was it against? Where they went all the way to the end and then just blew
Oh,
the
Denver.
game. Was it
Denver.
Denver? Yeah, that's
Yeah.
right. Man, fine lines. Denver, could easily have just been blown out of that series. Easily have just been blown out of the series. Yeah, and they're looking at a couple of first round exits in a row. But suddenly, this year they win some great series, and then they're one of the hot up and coming teams. DeRozan, is unrestricted next year. Rudy Gay is unrestricted next year. LaMarcus and Trey Lyles and Chimiz and Metu. But it's, do you kind of like get the band back together this year? You kind of wait a little bit, pick up some draft guys, bring in some other younger guys. Because looking at that, like that Mount Vesuvius, Blue Vesuvius of guys coming off contract next year, they're in a bit of a, they've got to make some decisions now and really lock themselves in for the next few years. And if they don't make the right decisions, it's going to be a bit of a struggle city, I think.
Yeah, I think they're probably hamstrung in terms of cap space, and the NBA is going to take a hit on cap space, so there's not going to be really room to sign guys this coming year. So with a reduced season, some older guys in the team, I don't see why they would blow it up or make too many crazy moves this off season. Maybe moving one of the two, Aldridge or DeRozan, for some picks, maybe a couple of young guys. Would be a good initiative. But you've got a lot of cap space coming off Hinge next year.
Mm.
You can make some moves. Rudy Gay and Patty Mills are probably in the end of their careers. They may stay for vet min or markedly reduced, and therefore you keep the kind of veterans in the team and keep that core together while still picking up a lot of money. But we don't really know what's going to happen with the NBA in terms of cap space, and we could be looking at severe cap restrictions. I think the NBPA votes on the 6th whether to just dismantle the collective bargaining agreement, and therefore it's all off. So it's kind of weird. They just don't want to take ownership, maybe, of the fact that the NBA's not making money. No one can sit in stands, and they want to get paid the same amount as they do every year. It's kind
Yeah.
of, there's every other professional league around the world has had to take a pay cut except the NBA.
Mm. And it's
Even
going to
baseball,
be it's going to be interesting to see what happens.
yeah, even baseball took pay cuts, massive pay cuts.
Mm.
I think NFL did take some pay cut, not a lot, because of their CBA. But yeah, man, the NBA is kind of like, no, we want to get paid the same every year. It's probably not going to happen until this pandemic sorts itself out.
And for a team like the Spurs with, guys coming off contract next year, I think they're gonna have to go all in. I think the last thing I heard about the cap possibly being 102, 102. I think it was 112. No, what was it this year? Let me just double check what it was.
I think it was
128.
113. Was it?
Luxury tax threshold 132.
Okay.
So that's a pretty big significant drop. I think. What does that really crunch? Does it crunch the highest salaries really, or does it crunch trying to get guys into a team on value contracts to make contributions? And I think that's where the Spurs are really going to struggle, because they're really a group of get those value contracts and get the most out, like really wring them out and get as much out of them as possible. I think that's where it's going to really hit.
Well, I think there'll be a few teams that can really pick up some massive draft stock because they're going to be taking some terrible contracts. There's some teams with huge amounts of cap space where Philly is just absolutely up to their eyeballs. The Spurs have some expensive vets. Unless the owners want to pay significant amounts of luxury tax, I would say they would need to move some payroll to some other teams. There isn't a lot of teams that have a huge amount of cap space. I think Atlanta has a fair bit of cap space. I know Miami has cap space. The Knicks have cap space. Detroit has cap space. So
and then you're reeling off some pretty stink pile teams.
Yeah, but you some stink pile teams that are definitely rebuilding that could take a huge contract.
Yeah,
and
LaMarcus at New York.
Yeah, I could say that.
Yeah, so let's quickly, we'll talk about DeRozan. The cap it was 109. You're right. I said luxury tax, didn't I, before? What a fool. So DeRozan, let's just quickly talk DeRozan and Aldridge as a package. Do you get rid of them this season?
You get rid of one.
One? Not both?
You get rid of DeRozan this year.
I get rid of both.
Well, the thing is, which one has more sign and trade value?
Which one probably DeRozan.
Yeah, well, then you get rid of Aldridge.
I reckon I get rid of them both, man. Like DeRozan kind of fits better. LaMarcus Aldridge doesn't fit that team at all.
No.
You know what I mean? They have to change the entire team. Remember, I think it was last year, or was it the year before maybe, where...
The year before, they just went to LaMarcus in the post 90% of plays.
Yeah, and it was just like, what? Like, what are you doing? Like, this is not Spurs basketball. This is just a joke. And then I think he even like threw a strop and got paid again. Like, I think he signed a 2-year $50 after kind of being like, they're not giving me the ball, man. This sucks, and... I think you just got to like jettison that guy, like not necessarily that contract, just that guy out of your team. It's like, we need to get this guy out of the team, get some value for him, obviously. DeRozan, I think you could probably string one more year out, but I'd still just go, let's make a move right now, get him out of here.
It's hard to take as a package deal somewhere though. And the problem is, I think that they're worried is that, there's some understanding in San Antonio is that you're not tanking, right? You're going for the championship. We're going for the playoffs. And if you get rid of both, then you're really going to be getting some low value players, or you're going to be getting some high value, low production players, bad contracts, really bad. You're going to get a bad contract and picks 2 years down the track. So you're going to be taking like an Al Horford. You're going to be taking,
Horford,
Jabari Park. You're going to be taking like these really, $20 million 2-year kind of deals.
Do you like Horford in this team instead of LaMarcus?
It actually works, man.
Yeah,
it really does.
I like that. I'm going to the trade machine right now.
Horford for DeRozan.
I'm heading to the trade machine, but I just think you gotta get out of LaMarcus as a player, and you gotta get out of DeRozan as a contract to open up some avenues to get you some kind of. They're lacking like big reliable wings, like Rudy Gay's kind of coming to the end of his.
That's not Spurs basketball. Spurs basketball isn't 3D.
Well, it's like playmakers at the wing, It's handoffs, it's ball movement. If you don't really have a ball dominant point guard, then you kind of need those playmakers at the wing, or a center or a power forward who playmakes, and they just don't have that either. Like you got LaMarcus who kind of tried it a little bit, doesn't really work. But yeah, I think Horford, what are we doing here? Team 1, Philly. Team 2, Aussies taking over the trade machine.
It'd be a Horford Tybal for DeRozan. That would be the trade that...
LaMarcus Aldridge for Al Horford. Try this trade. This trade is successful. Bang. Would you take LaMarcus at Philly?
No.
No.
No. It's just like more give me the ball in the post. And it's like, no.
He has an attitude readjustment, realigns his attitude.
No. I'd take DeRozan. The reason I'd take DeRozan is you'd have to move Richardson. You could put DeRozan in the 2 guard and, Ben Simmons can collapse and DeRozan can play in the mid-range. And it makes a little bit more sense.
So you would take DeRozan at Philly?
Yeah, for 1 year. Fuck yeah.
It's year in.
I mean, for 1 year.
DeRozan, this trade is successful. I think, wow, Hollinger's analysis, Philly goes up 6 wins. The Spurs go down 9.
Obviously, you wouldn't just go straight trade. They'd probably have to take like Tybal or Isaiah Smith plus a pick.
There's got to be something thrown in there.
Contract. But I think Horford would work well in the Spurs.
I think so, but it's got to be for LaMarcus. I think if you're going to get, like for like, putting Horford in that Spurs system.
I wouldn't like for like because you'd move Tobias Harris to power forward, so you would.
But for Spurs, I'm talking about Spurs.
Well, Spurs, Horford would slot in at 5.
Yeah,
so
easy.
He could be that defense. Aldridge could play on the weak side. Horford could stand at the top and shoot, but also play some defense.
Now Horford's going to Philly, mate.
Horford is Philly.
Sorry, Aldridge is going to Philly.
No, he's
not. All over the place. So let's talk about Paddy now. I think he had a really good season. We heaped a lot of praise on him sort of at the back end of last year. It's hard to like put a timeline on what this season has been because of obviously the lockdown and the bubble. But I really think like the back end of last year, he was in some really good form. He was hitting his stride. Just looking at his numbers, I'm bringing them up here now. 11.6 points per game this season, which is up from last year. Obviously only 66 games. A lot of off the bench, but playing significant minutes. I kind of like that.
Yeah.
The more I think about it, I'm like, I like Paddy playing 25, but coming off the bench. Like a really good veteran role. He's had really good veteran presence, I think, over the last couple of seasons. Playing 22 minutes per game. Shooting the 3 ball at 38.2%. It's a little bit down from last year, but around his sort of stable average. It was really back in that 2016-17 season where he shot 41%, which was, a real high from the last 6 years. But, pretty reliable. I thought he was looking a lot better. I was watching a little bit of highlights before we came on the stream. At more reliable at coming off a screen and shooting the ball. And I've said to you in the past, like you look at Curry, who doesn't really have, like you can tell he doesn't have the explosiveness to be one of these new wave, like I can just create a shot out of just my own movement alone, like a step back or a side step. But I think Paddy kind of looked like he was almost on his way to creating a shot like that. Like it's still the old school, big sets a pick and he comes off sideways around a screen, shoots that 3 ball when the defender goes under. But I think I could see him developing, one of those ISO type 3s. Hey?
He did for Australia. It was definitely that kind of sidestep 3 dribble.
For like a long cut,
Yeah. Definitely has the skill set involved to do that. I think Paddy'd be a valuable resource on other teams as a backup point guard. Obviously, he's probably going to stay with the Spurs and hopefully come play a few years back in Australia when he retires. But yeah, I definitely see him being of value, kind of like that JJ Redick style, can play on any team, just is a guy that just comes and shoots around the curl. Everyone needs one of those, you know what I mean? Every single team needs one of those. And you need a good facilitator. And I think that's what the Spurs lack this year, is that good facilitator to get that going more and dialing up more plays, like, say, a JJ Redick.
Even Paddy's assist numbers were down significantly this season. Last year was 3 assists per game. This year's only 1.8 assists per game, which kind of, I guess that kind of fits his role coming off the bench as a scorer more this season, rather than I think he was running a little bit more point last year, actually running the team when Murray was injured. But I think, what do you reckon? They re-sign him eventually after this season?
Yeah, 2 years. I think if he's like a longevity vet min or a 2-year 5, I think he's got cap exclusion in there somewhere. So only part of his salary would go towards the cap anyway.
Just checking out his sport track. Doesn't say anything like that.
Hasn't he got mid-level exemption?
Bird rights.
Yeah.
I'm not sure, but I think you could pick him up for a pretty good value contract. I don't know if he signs the equivalent 2 years, $30 million a season. I don't know if he's worth that. Maybe 7 or 8 a season.
He was on a 5-year 60. That's what this deal was.
4 years 48.
4 years 48.
Whereas this year is when it really matures at $30 million a season. This year, it's kind of back end loaded. But I can see him signing on a team, for 2 years 16, and really getting some good value out of that. I feel like he could be like a sleeper value pickup for another team. But at the same time, at the Spurs, he kind of fits their system. He fits what they do. He's a good attitude, good role guy, good role model for the team. He had a really good season. It kind of went under the radar that, with the bubble and everything happening, what he gave to that Spurs team, and the Spurs team kind of just, petering out into nothing is a bit of a disappointment for him. Not necessarily him being disappointed, just a bit of a disappointment to waste, what I think was a pretty good season coming off that World Cup, where it was just, it was just flamethrowers at that World Cup. Paddy, shoot it. What? Shoot it, mate. Shoot it. Which is really good. Hopefully, he can have another good season and then, get another nice payday and have another couple of years in the league. And then, I would like to see him come down onto the NBL after that. Spurs going forward. Let's cram in some Spurs going forward thoughts. You've heard us talk about, obviously, DeRozan and Aldridge. I would like to see him get off those two contracts. They got the number 11 pick in the draft. I'm just bringing up the draft board. Fits. What kind of fits? What are you thinking that they kind of need?
I don't know, because what do they need? A center, really.
You reckon they need a center?
They need a center, especially if you're going to move away from Aldridge. You need someone to pick up the defensive slack or a body slack. Jakob Poeltl's okay at times, but,
He's like discount Gobert, really, isn't he?
Oh, mate. Dollar shop Gobert.
Reject shop Gobert. No, it's harsh.
They kind of need a facilitator. I mean, DeJounte Murray's not really a facilitator. Bryn Forbes is not really a facilitator. Derek White's not really a facilitator. They need someone to actually run some shit. But they're really guard heavy. They're guard loaded.
I think Murray could grow into that role. I think he's got the ability to do that.
I just don't think he has the floor vision, the court vision. I think he's a good ISO shooter, good 3-point shooter, can come off, create his own shot, but not really.
So you reckon he could grow into a role, something like that? I think he could grow into something decent like that. 4 assists per game this season, not great in the grand scheme of things, but I still think he's got the ability. It's a little bit wispy, and he's quite quick. You kind of maybe want him scoring the ball a little bit more. But yeah, I think you're right. I don't think they could get away with just having Murray handle the ball. Bryn Forbes, you're looking at guys where you just toss the ball to him and go, oh, well, just give us what you got. You're not looking at, he's a reliable backup guy who can kind of run the point. You just, tossing the ball to someone and hoping for the best. I feel like with Forbes and Murray White. Yeah, I don't know. Do they go for a ball handler or something like that, or do they go for a big? You reckon a big's more important?
Probably to the future, you could probably get a ball handler for Aldridge or DeRozan plus picks. So there's an abundance of point guards in the league. I think actually like Alonzo would fit this system quite well. Defensively quite good. Yeah. Yeah, not like a top tier kind of guy, but could fit a system. Doesn't need to shoot the ball. There's enough shooters, but someone who has court vision, and gets guys open, can set picks, which Alonzo does quite well, and defend.
Yeah, defends pretty well too. He's got. Yeah. I wouldn't say he's at a level where you would say he should play for the Spurs, but at the same time, I feel like a good coach might get the defensive side out of his game.
Okay.
Out of him.
Definitely explosive enough. Probably not going to stay long term on the Pelicans, but potentially a DeMar DeRozan to the Pelicans could work quite well as well.
Just double checking, they do have the 11th pick. The San Antonio Spurs. I did read that just before we started. Just double checking that. I'm just looking at the guys just around. Jalen Smith is a big. RJ Hampton's around that area, 14. You kind of don't want him, really. He's not a facilitative type point guard. Really, if you look at the Okongwu, maybe. If you look at the draft, man, there really isn't a good array of bigs where you're going to draft. A guy like Obi Toppin maybe, and then James Wiseman, but I don't think they're going to fall to 11.
Well, here's an interesting trade. Do you go Mo Bamba, Aaron Gordon for LaMarcus Aldridge?
Ooh, Mo Bamba. Interesting. And Gordon, was it?
Yeah, Aaron Gordon. It gives you kind of more athletic four without just the post presence.
I like Aaron Gordon, but he's also another guy where you just it's a roll the dice. You could get
a massive underachiever, such an underachiever.
You could get anything. You know what I mean?
Way better he should be way better than he is. Way better.
And a scary prospect. I'd be scared going, we're gonna all go in on Aaron Gordon. It sounds good. You talk yourself into it. You go, yeah, this is good. Aaron Gordon, yeah, definitely. He's had some good years at Orlando, but ultimately it's going to end up, like Blake Griffin type of scenario where it just doesn't really work. Not necessarily with the injuries, but they do have the number 11 pick too, by the way.
Okay.
So yeah, looking through the draft guide, there aren't really Okongwu maybe if he falls from 9-ish to 11 maybe as a big, or Jalen Smith really. I feel like they need a 3-tier type center too, a guy who can pass, smarts, not just a shot blocker basically. You have Capertle as a shot blocker. They kind of need a guy who can handle the ball up at the perimeter, up on the elbow, really make some plays happen. Kind of looking at Bukasevsky. Have you seen him? He's like an absolute noodle. 7'3", 201, weighs 201, 7'3".
He weighs less than me.
Yeah, 201. Dude, go and watch some highlights if you haven't seen this guy. I'll send you a clip. If you all the guys watching out there, go and find Alexei Bukasevsky. It's too hard to spell out his name, but yeah, just Pokusevsky rather. It's an absolute noodle, man. It's hilarious. So I don't see them getting him. I'm looking at some of the wings. I don't know. Maybe they get a wing. Vassell, Patrick Williams. I don't know, man. It's another they've just got to go all in and really have a crack here. But there's COVID uncertainty, coach uncertainty, roster kind of uncertainty, system things you kind of got to think about. It's a real tipping point, man, with the Spurs. I can feel they could go and just disappear, or they're back again this season.
Yeah, interesting prospect.
Yeah, I think I've had enough of watching DeRozan.
Yeah,
because all the people who've been listening for a long time can remember I was really high on, yes, I want to see DeRozan in this system, and then I love telling this story of just after about 30 games, it's just I've had enough of this man. I don't like watching it. I like DeRozan, I like the Spurs, but I just don't want to watch this. It's not fun to watch. So yeah, I think we'll leave it there. What are we gonna do? Come back? When are we coming back? Next week or this week? At some point?
Midweek, probably. Phoenix or Jazz?
Yeah, we'll do the Phoenix or Jazz. We've still got to do Detroit. Maybe we'll slip Detroit in there and get that out of the way.
Detroit and Phoenix together.
Yeah. Glom them in together. Try and stretch out 30 minutes of content.
The Phoenix could be good. Let's be
Yeah,
real.
I'm a
so
bit
base.
like, low key kind of I like what the Phoenix Suns are doing here. This could be very interesting if Bainesy stays.
Definitely.
And then we've got a video. Keep your eyes peeled. We've got a video dropping on Tuesday. If you watched the last episode, you might have heard what we're dropping. I won't spoil it here. You'll have to go and have a look at that. And then we do have some more content, secret content coming soon that I'm not going to spoil here as well. You have to keep your eyes peeled for that. As always, like and subscribe on Spotify, on Twitter, on SoundCloud,
Facebook,
on
the book face.
Yeah, Facebook, YouTube, everywhere. iTunes podcasts. I believe it's Apple Podcast now. It's not iTunes podcast
It's Apple
anymore.
Podcast.
So I should get in the habit of saying Apple Podcasts. And as always, we will see you guys on the next episode.
Peace out.